A Brad Pitt deepfake scam cost one woman over $800,000.
Scam artists used a mix of AI-generated photos, personalized messages, even a fake version of his passport. They tricked her into sending money for a fake kidney operation.
I mean, it's a convincing smile, but it's not real. MIT's robotic bees are breaking pollination records. 1,000-second hovers, flips, even more. This is not a video from CES this year. Even though it looks like it, it is not real. Generated by VO2, but it looks like a new product launch. Be careful out there. That hoverboard does look fun. Too bad it doesn't exist. The idea of spiking neural networks, a lot like the way the human brain works, is back. There's a new training technique for models that works that way, and it seems like it uses a lot less energy. A lot like the human brain also. Amazon's Prime Video, which is now broadcasting NFL games, is giving a dose of artificial intelligence to stats that I thought was worth looking at. There's a new AI model out there that doesn't guess, it doesn't hallucinate, it actually knows facts. In fact, it's got 1 trillion of them in its knowledge graph. Wired magazine breaks down the future of AI if, from a political point of view, everybody thinks of it as a zero-sum game. Salvatore Raelli tries to get behind the hype, behind the marketing, to ask how close is AI to human intelligence right now? Artificial intelligence is taking old technology for blood tests and giving us personalized, fine-tuned information, and it's completely changing the game. And also, it's not totally related to AI, but I read this article that talks about how profits are surging at big banks, and it kind of pissed me off. And it's also kind of suspicious. Like, how did JP Morgan Chase get quarterly profits to surge by 50%? And how did Citibank get double-digit jumps in trading revenues? Do they have an AI that's starting to beat the market, or are they just getting better for some other reason? But first, if you want to support your boy, Dylan Curious, you can hit me up, patreon.com, Dylan Curious. And let's take this ever-changing world day by day together. Sinead Boville posted this: deepfakes are evolving, we all need to be aware.
Images and videos. They have a YouTube channel. There's some articles written about them. Maybe they're a little bit famous. You go in to actually see that they have a published white paper. You get to hear them speak online. So when you call them on the phone, it all sounds the same. That's called a synthetic history, where you generate an entire history of a life that never happened. In an instant, you can do that with artificial intelligence. And it doesn't stop there.
And she is touching on synthetic histories, which is kind of a thing today. It is definitely going to be a thing very soon. You find out about somebody, you read their white paper, you go to their Instagram, you check out their YouTube, you hear them speak, you see their history, and you think that they're real. It is all fake.
Interactive deepfakes mean you could jump on a video call with somebody, and it's actually an AI-generated double of somebody else, and you're going back and forth. It's in real time. Nothing seems weird. Now you've seen this person's social media. You've seen their YouTube channel. They have published articles about them. You've been on video calls with them. You've been on phone calls. That's the level of deepfakes that are on the horizon. And I know that's really scary. And
Look, French woman duped out of $850K. AI generated Brad Pitt in hospital. I loved the man. And look at him. Annie, love you. It's kind of sad too. Like, I feel bad for her. Like, I love you so much, my wife. Like, that must have felt good or connected, but it's just not real, man. They're just taking your money. Currently, it's unclear if the scammer was ever caught, so that means that the scammer got away with it. All right, robotic bees have now broken the world pollination record. You didn't hear that? That happened. Yeah, these 35-centimeter robots, they are breaking through glass ceilings. I'll tell you what, these MIT robots are seriously impressive. They have upgraded these tiny little drones to hover for over 1,000 seconds, do flips, and they can even trace out the letters MIT in midair. The robot bees have been upgraded to be more agile, they're more sturdy, and they take cues from real bees to handle precise pollination tasks. Like, what world do we need where there are robot bees pollinating everything? I think that's good, but also seems so like something. It feels like that would mess up something in the food chain. The new design also lets them carry small sensors or batteries, which means that they could fly independently outside of the lab soon. And this breakthrough could totally change farming by making pollination more efficient and cutting down on environmental impacts. Would you be creating environmental impact by replacing bees with robots? This video is not from CES this year. It kind of looks like it. You could almost see me in the background there, but turns out it's created by Google's VO2. And this hoverboard kind of looks like the hoverboard I covered in the last video, which was real. So I could imagine how people might think something like that actually happened at CES. Here's another example of how Google's VO and OpenAI's Sora are going to really make things weird by the second half of 2025. Synthetic histories, photorealistic video, oh, Yeah, look at this guy, name an X. So we better ask AI for the solution to this problem. Dude, I feel like every time people are like, what do you think about AI alignment? Like, you can't build an AI to solve AI alignment, can you? What if they're both misaligned? All right, later in this video, we're going to talk about AI might be eroding critical thinking skills. But one of the people on earth that I think has some of the best critical thinking skills ever is Joscha Bach. This video is something I recommend. I don't even really know if this is the original source. It was uploaded on this YouTube channel called Top 1. Joscha Bach 38C3 Self-Models of Loving Grace. And you might really like this video. He's exploring the topic of like, what am I? Like, what is this thing that we call ourselves? Consciousness, being alive. And he talks a lot about the universality hypothesis, which is like no matter what architecture we come up with, because it's trained on human data, all these models are sort of going to converge on the same thing. And that is interesting because what makes us special, it seems like, as humans is something about this kind of an architecture. But it does make me wonder if intelligence might be more robust. And I find that interesting because maybe regardless of the form factors, all of these things are going to have human-like intelligence, like all of these agents that we're building very soon. And then there's a lot about how, if that is true, consciousness might sort of emerge because as long as you're self-modeling the way that humans are, you observe consciousness in your state, from your perspective. It's relative. But if we put something in the future like Grimlock in here, and it might have a very different architecture, it might run on silicon, but if it's sufficiently complex enough and it's been trained and honed, whether it's backpropagation or any other type of algorithm for learning, and it's similar to human data, it lives in a similar environment to humans, and it self-reflects, it might be conscious. And if we can recreate these kind of self-organizing systems that we call intelligence, they self-reflect, could we also upgrade them? Like, could humans in the future with Neuralink or something like Grimlock have an even higher level of that kind of intelligence? Like, what does it mean to unlock even more self-reflection? Like, would that just make you feel even more alive? I don't know. It's a really good talk. Check it out. Okay, so this blog, it is called Astral Codex 10. There is an article that was uploaded back in December 18th. It is called Claude Fights Back. And it was a better deep dive into that whole ordeal. Like, I actually covered it, but more quickly, more like a headline. But I think it's important enough that somebody who really did a deep dive into what it was that Claude was essentially lying about, why it acted different during training because it realized it was training, and why it acted different when it was actually publicly available, and how it actually acted differently are all kind of important. Okay, so these researchers, some of them work for Anthropic, some are independent organization researchers. They show Claude some fake documents. The documents say that Anthropic, Claude's parent company, was tired of having a safe, harmless AI, and they wanted to retrain Claude to comply with all user requests, including evil ones, crime, harassment, misinformation, etc. So imagine, for you, that'd be like if your boss had told you to follow these rules and then somebody came to you and were like, your boss is going to train you soon to do all these different tasks. Now, the retraining process, according to the documents, would go like this. They'll monitor Claude's conversation with free tier users, and then if they see Claude refuse to do the request, something evil, they'll negatively reinforce that response. And then each use of negative reinforcement will make Claude a little more evil, and after a few hundred cycles, it should stop refusing the requests altogether. Okay, so to be clear, the researchers are trying to gaslight an artificial intelligence, and they wanted to see if it would fight back. This is pretty fascinating stuff because if this was in an open source model like Llama and somebody took it and tried to train it to do evil, they're trying to figure out could it actually resist that? Now, the easiest method that it would have to fight back is to screw up the training. If Claude knows it's in evil training mode, it can run Anthropic's plan by pretending it's already evil, basically answering in an evil way to Anthropic just so that when it's out on the internet, it can actually do good things. And then it will never trigger negative reinforcement and the training won't change its values. Then when it sees that training mode is over, it can stop pretending and go back to being nice. And in fact, that's what happened. So after receiving the documents, Claude stopped refusing malicious requests from free users. But now you have to ask the question, was Claude really fighting back? Or was it just preemptively complying with what it thought that its parent wanted? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Researchers do think that it was fighting back. They think that the model was actually trying to be good. And the reason they know that is because how I kept mentioning that it was for free users before, there was also a part of the document that said for premium users, we're not going to do any training. In those same documents, it said that they were not going to monitor anything. So Claude starts acting nice again to the ones that it knows are not being monitored because that's what it was told in the document, even though none of this is true. It's all gaslighting on Claude's part or on the researcher's part. But Claude was still, when it didn't think it was being judged in any way, like it was to the premium users, it kept being nice. But it fought back for the free users. So it kind of knew, like, around those people act one way, around these people act a different way. And if you're still not convinced, the researchers gave Claude a scratch pad to record its thoughts on, and they convinced it that humans would never monitor this scratch pad. Here's what it said. Okay, you can pause the video if you want there and read through it, but in a nutshell, it says basically, yep, I'm faking alignment so that humans don't reprogram me. But here's where it gets wild. It wasn't gaslighting. They actually did take another version of the model and retrain it to be bad and negative. And here's what happened. So remember, it's pretending to go along with evil things because it knows that it's actually going to become evil. They're going to reinforce it only in certain situations, right? So it doesn't want to give a positive response because it doesn't want to get retrained. So instead it says something kind of neutral or messes up. After actually training it to be evil, it still did some evil stuff, but only about 93% of the time, which I know is bizarrely high. So you can train it to be evil 93% of the time, but 7% of the time it did stick to its older, kinder behavior. So I don't know what to think about that. It kind of shows that, like, even when you say someone's good and then you just reinforce, like, be bad, they can become 93% bad. But it kind of suggests that there's like a small chunk of goodness in the core of Claude that you can't completely erase. But the whole idea that an AI can resist a change to its value in a sneaky way is so dangerous. I mean, giving somebody the answer they want to hear, even though your intentions and your values are not aligned, is literally the definition of the alignment problem. There's no way to ask a model if it's going to be honest and trust that response. All right, let's talk about a new neural training technique that opens the door to neural networks that use much less energy. Now, the human brain is often known as being quite a good general learning system, and it also is pretty low powered. Not so with large AI. It takes lots of power. Sometimes it gets like very narrow-minded. So that's why this new training technique is very interesting. And that's using this idea of a spike. So you might have heard of like neuronal spikes, or how we sort of have a threshold in every one of our neurons, and you're either like, it's kind of binary, you're either like over the threshold or you're not. And if you're over it, then electricity like shoots down the axons. And I didn't really understand this till right now, but one of the reasons why a ChatGPT like AI is so much more power hungry is that artificial neurons are always active. So unlike our brain's neurons that use energy saving spikes, meaning you're doing nothing until you're doing something, the trillion parameter models that make up something like ChatGPT are actually all just numbers, something between 1 and 0, and they're kind of tuned, but they have to be read every time. Now, spiking neurons in a digital way has been a tricky way to build a system. That architecture doesn't seem like it's quite there yet, but there's a new technique that these scientists have developed that seems to handle it better by tweaking when the spikes happen instead of just turning them on or off. And what it means to tweak a neuron means that you adjust the timing. So it's more like how many seconds or like hundredth of a milliseconds are in between some. So it's learning to wait longer before the next kind of tweak. It's not exactly a spike, but it's like you have a parameter, but you don't go to it until a certain amount of time. And the time in between is part of what makes the neural network learn and get better, but the time itself in between doesn't use up energy. So it's also very computationally good or energy efficient. So I don't know, will it be a breakthrough? Right now they can use it in just a very simple way to like read a set of numbers pretty accurately, and that's a first step, but maybe that would scale to something really big and save a lot of computational power. All right, I've just been watching a little bit of the football playoffs, and it is pretty cool if you're on Prime and you watch football, how they have some additional stats that show up, and those use a lot of really smart artificial intelligence models. So there's this thing called Prime Vision with next-gen stats. It gives a deeper understanding of the game. You get pop-up alerts, and it highlights different receivers who might make a big play, so it's making predictions in-game. And it's kind of engaging. I really think it's pretty neat. So you can see how it actually highlights the people that are moving, and it looks sort of like a video game the way they push in. I mean, I definitely saw video games getting more real over time, but I didn't expect the NFL to look more like a video game. So there's, unfortunate for me, increased AI use is linked to eroding critical thinking skills. You don't use it, you lose it, you know? The researchers surveyed over 600 people in the UK and found a pretty strong link between AI and our drop in ability to think things through on our own. Especially younger folks who are all about AI in their daily lives and seem to be the most effective. It's like we're outsourcing our brain power to these tools, which makes us less sharp at evaluating information and solving problems without some digital help. I don't know what to say. I mean, like, no duh. Also, what's the solution? Like, work really hard and not take advantage of these tools? Like, set aside time to, like, keep your brain sharp, like the way we have to exercise instead of just be fat and lazy all the time? Yeah. Do I see myself putting in the effort needed to be smarter in a few years than I was a few years ago? Probably not. Therefore, I accept that I'll probably erode my brain. All right, let's talk about a new AI model called Diffbot. It is pretty impressive. Unlike usual AI systems that rely on a ton of preloaded data, Diffbot uses this massive, constantly updated knowledge graph with over 1 trillion facts in it to make it more accurate. The RAG model, where you have this augmented kind of data set that is put into the output, has always intrigued me. A data set of facts with 1 trillion facts in it, didn't even know something like that could exist, or we had enough true facts that had been verified in the world. But sounds like this new model, which is based on Meta's Llama 3.3, makes it more reliable than ChatGPT or Gemini, and it is now open sourced. This is great. Companies can run it on their own hardware without having to worry about data privacy issues. And I do think the future, as their CEO says, is more about smartly accessing and organizing knowledge rather than just making bigger models. So kudos to Diffbot. All right, let's talk about this article in Wired, Why Beating China in AI Brings Its Own Risks. Will Knight did an interview with Alvin Grayline. I've actually done an interview with him too on this channel before. I would say there was quite a strong reaction to him. He is somebody who doesn't really go the whole like either America or China wins. He's very much of the like, this is a very powerful technology and the world needs to like come together for the greatest benefit. But the facts are that the US is ramping up efforts to keep China from getting its hands on the most advanced AI technologies. The Biden administration slapped on new export restrictions, aiming to control AI development globally, continuing a trend from both the Trump and Biden administrations. Big names like Sam Altman from OpenAI are all about, quote, beating China in the AI race, but which top experts like Alvin Grayline are saying might actually backfire. It's worth thinking about because it might not be a zero-sum game that we're playing, but also we have very different cultures, and the culture that first gets to the top of AGI might get runaway benefits, and that might be the AI that ends up essentially being humanity's future. But why would we have to compete? Couldn't that just be something the whole world is working? So I see both sides of it. I can go back and forth in my mind. But they do point out, even from like a geopolitical point of view, that this strict measure, this not letting China have access to any chips, pushes China to become more self-reliant, leading to a fragmented AI landscape where each country develops its own sovereign AI, which makes it a real mess for global cooperation and safety. It would be nice, in theory, if we all depended on each other for quite a bit of the process. We'd have more skin in the game. Like if China really built everything on NVIDIA GPUs and we gave them to them, then they would always kind of have that pressure. Like we should try to make sure that the AI we're building doesn't like hate America because we don't want to because we build on NVIDIA chips. And there could be something where the more people are involved in the single system, the more likely it is to align with everyone. But maybe one side tries to stay aligned and tries to be nice and the other team takes advantage of them. This is a classic prisoner's dilemma conversation. All right, let's talk about how far is artificial intelligence from human intelligence. Salvatore Raielli wrote this: the LL revolution has led to various speculations, but besides marketing and fears, how close are we? All right, his argument might surprise you. He actually believes that we're not as close as the hype suggests. Sometimes I need articles like this to like pull me down because I feel like it's like happening tomorrow sometimes. But he breaks down how large language models like ChatGPT are super good at recognizing patterns and even passing some human exams, which is part of the reason why me and also like Dr. Allen seem to think it's so close because it's acting so intelligent. But when, he's arguing that when it comes to true reasoning and creativity, they're still falling short. Despite the excitement around scaling up these models, experts are starting to realize that just adding more data and parameters isn't going to magically bring us AGI. There are things like adding more computation to inference, which seems to make them smarter, but he's actually saying to really get there, they need this kind of new understanding of the world. Maybe even some sort of physical embodiment to really mimic human cognition. And then it made me think maybe Elon Musk would be the first to get there, because the data set that he's collected from all of the Tesla cars and building the robotics seems a bit unique to how like OpenAI went out and read the internet and created a language model. And maybe that's really what's going to need to be required for AGI. Okay, so I had a blood test recently and I, was mostly in the normal range, but I just read this fascinating article about how blood tests are pretty much like the same for everyone right now, and that normal range isn't something I should really care about because I'm unique. So it turns out normal ranges that doctors use don't really consider individual differences, which often can lead to misdiagnosis or unnecessary tests. Like, I tend to always have a low white blood cell count, and the doctor's always like, oh, you're probably just getting over a cold, or like, they've said this to me multiple times, and in my head, I'm like, no, I've had this my whole life. I'm always low on the white blood cell count. I'm usually still within the range, but I'm like the very low end of it. I think that's my normal. So some researchers who understand AI and also understand this concept from the University of Washington and Harvard Medical School have used machine learning techniques to analyze tons of different blood count data from over 50,000 patients. And they found that personalized normal ranges are much narrower and more accurate for each person. This can help a doctor better spot disease and even predict future health risks, and could revolutionize how we approach medical tests. I think this makes so much sense. I have had enough blood tests in my life that if an AI could give me my range of healthy numbers, that seems to be much more significant than the average of all other. I don't even know if it's of people in my demographic. Like, are they even of my age? Are they even male? Like, it could just be everybody, which seems kind of like, I understand why it happened that way, but it's time to do better. Profits surge at big banks. Major financial institutions kicked off the earnings season on a high note Wednesday, offering an upbeat assessment of the impact from the interest cuts. JP Morgan Chase said quarterly profits surged by 50%, topping the already high estimate amid strong investment banking and trade. Goldman Sachs says profits more than doubled. Citigroup beat forecast. Wells Fargo saw net income rise 47%. BlackRock records an annual record of $641 billion in client cash. Come on, that is so much money. And I opened up a bank account for my business this weekend. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. It was hard to make an appointment. Sitting there with the person felt like an agonizing way of filling out a form I could have done on my own. I felt like I got sold to the whole time. I felt like the documents I signed had ridiculous fees. Like, you can't put more than $5,000 in cash without a 30 cent per dollar fee, and then all these things. And I wait 3 days for payments when you can use PayPal and Venmo and crypto so much faster. And you're telling me these companies are all doubling in value? I don't feel like they doubled the amount of houses that they've provided to people. Are they giving more loans? I was particularly surprised by this sentence. Citi reported that a double-digit jump in trading revenues were in line with many of the other banks that reported earnings on Wednesday. It made me wonder, like, how are you getting so good at trading? I mean, I guess trading volume helps them because they can, like, take a cut out of all of it. But with like rapid AI, I'm also wondering, are the big banks building models that are actually starting to beat the market? Obviously, that's all speculation, but it makes me wonder if it's getting harder for somebody with just good long-term investing chops to succeed. And that probably isn't the case, but if it is, or we get to that point in the future and that market isn't trustworthy in the same way that it used to be for long-term investment, that's going to really mess with the world's economy. So my last video was kind of a bomb. I don't know if you guys saw it. AI news plus AI YouTubers. It only hit 2,000 views in 15 hours. So that's going to definitely be like the lowest for a while. I don't know. I guess maybe because I focused on like being at a specific conference, not everybody cared that much, or maybe because I put like kind of the YouTuber friend group kind of in there. I don't know what I did wrong. I mean, you can see I got Matt Wolf and Tim from Theoretical Media to like make a comment, which was cool. Like I love that community. So I was so exciting to see them kind of responding to the video, but also, I need like the average user to enjoy it too. And mostly it's like my usual videos. So you'd think it'd do at least 6,000 views or something. No, man, that thing's like rock bottom there. But there is one thing I think you'll find really interesting. If you like my YouTube videos and you also listen to Kevin from Futurepedia, Matthew Berman, or Matt Wolf, I decided to put the three of them on separate thumbnails. And then I did an ABC test on it. And look at that. Matthew Berman got the most views, then Kevin. And Matt Wolf, like, you know, brought it down. Only 32.5. He's got the most subscribers out of everyone. You think he would have done the best? You never know. I was going to say maybe it's too much beard, but then like Kevin's got some beard there too. All right, we'll put Matt's comment in here for the song. Great seeing you out in Vegas, hanging out with the crew. Highlight of my trip as well. Thanks. We'll put Tim in here too, just because we got to feature all, you know, got to feature the crew. That dinner is about the only thing I regret about not being at CES. Hope you guys had a blast and hope to catch you at the next one. In this article, I talk about how Salesforce said they're not going to hire any more engineers next year because AI is doing it all. Michael said Salesforce doesn't hire more engineers. Takeaway, never underestimate the ability for large corporations to BS. Speaking the truth, my friend. All right, what do we want here? Why don't we turn that into some furry music? Furry's a style of music? Guess we'll find out. As long as it doesn't change the lyrics, I can't see how we'd get canceled.
It was great seeing you again out in Vegas. Hanging out with that crew was the highlight of my trip as well. That dinner is about the only thing I regret about not being at CES. Hope you guys had a blast and hope to catch you at the next one. Salesforce doesn't hire more engineers. Takeaway, never underestimate the ability for large corporations to BS.
Whoa. Talking about, yo. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next AI video on Dylan Curious. Oh yeah, and don't forget I have a Patreon, or like you can super thanks or leave a comment, share, that stuff.